Jake Harris had been in space for 3 years. He worked as a navigation officer on the diplomatic ship called Horizon. He had seen many strange things in his time among the stars. He had visited planets with purple skies and moons made of ice. He had met aliens who breathed fire and aliens who lived in water. But nothing had prepared him for the Valorian delegation. The Valorians arrived on a Tuesday morning, ship time. Jake stood with the rest of the crew in the main docking bay, wearing his best uniform. Captain Linda Morrison had told them all to look professional. This was an important moment for humanity. The Valorians were one of the oldest races in the galaxy, and they had finally agreed to meet with humans. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Jake watched as the first Valorian stepped onto the ship. His breath caught in his throat. They were tall, at least 7 feet each, with bodies that seemed to glow from within. Their skin was the color of pale lavender, and it shifted and changed like the surface of water when light hit it. They had large eyes, silver and bright, and their hair flowed behind them like silk caught in a gentle wind. They were beautiful in a way that made Jake feel small and ordinary. There were 12 of them in total. Advisors, guards, and servants moved in perfect formation. But at the center of the group walked someone different. She wore robes of deep purple and silver, and a thin crown of crystal sat on her head. Her skin glowed brighter than the others, and when she moved, the light around her seemed to bend. Captain Morrison stepped forward. "Welcome to the Horizon. I am Captain Linda Morrison. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we are honored to receive you." The Valorian with the crown inclined her head. "I am Princess Alara Vinthessa, third daughter of the High Sovereign. My father sends his greetings to your people." Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes on a summer day. Jake felt a strange sensation in his chest when he heard it. He told himself it was just nerves. He was standing in the presence of alien royalty. Anyone would be nervous. The welcome ceremony continued. Speeches were given. Gifts were exchanged. Jake stood at attention with the other officers, trying not to fidget. He was just a navigation officer. He had no part in the important diplomatic talks. His job was simply to look professional and stay quiet. But then something strange happened. Princess Alara was walking past the line of officers when she stopped. Jake felt her eyes on him before he saw them. Slowly he turned his head, and their gazes met. Her silver eyes were impossible to read. They held depth and mystery, like looking into a pool of liquid moonlight. She stared at him for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Her skin, which had been a soft lavender, shifted to a warmer shade, almost pink. Then she moved on, and the moment was broken. Jake let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. His heart was beating fast, and his palms were sweating. He did not understand what had just happened. He was nobody important. Why had she looked at him like that? The welcome ceremony ended, and the crew was dismissed to their normal duties. Jake made his way to the navigation deck, trying to push the strange encounter from his mind. He had work to do. The ship needed to maintain its orbit around the Valorian homeworld, and the calculations required his full attention, but he could not focus. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those silver eyes staring at him. His friend Danny Park found him in the mess hall that evening. Danny was a communications officer, a few years younger than Jake, with a quick smile and an endless appetite for gossip. "So," Danny said, sliding into the seat across from Jake, "want to tell me what happened at the ceremony?" Jake looked up from his untouched food. "What do you mean?" "Come on. I saw the princess stop and stare at you. Everyone saw it. People are talking." Jake felt his face grow warm. "I do not know what that was about. She probably just found my face strange. Humans must look weird to them." Danny laughed. "Sure, that is why her skin turned pink. According to the cultural briefings, That color means she was pleased or interested. He wiggled his eyebrows. I think you have an admirer, Jake. That is ridiculous. Is it? She is beautiful, and she clearly noticed you. What is so ridiculous about that? Jake pushed his food around his plate. She is a princess, Danny. An alien princess. I am just a guy who makes sure the ship does not fly into asteroids. There is no reason for someone like her to be interested in someone like me. Danny shrugged. Maybe she likes your face. Maybe she felt something. Who knows how these things work with aliens? Jake wanted to argue, but he did not have the energy. He excused himself and went back to his quarters. He needed sleep. Tomorrow would be a long day, but sleep did not come easily. Over the next few days, Jake started to notice things. Small things at first. He would enter the mess hall, and Princess Alara would already be there, sitting with her advisors. Her eyes would find him across the room and follow him as he got his food and found a seat. He would walk down a corridor, and she would appear around the corner, almost as if she had been waiting for him. Their eyes would meet, and her skin would shift to that warm pink color before she moved on. He attended a cultural presentation about human history, and she sat in the back of the room. He could feel her gaze on the back of his neck the entire time. Like a gentle touch he could not ignore. Jake told himself he was imagining things. The ship was not that big. Of course, they would run into each other sometimes. It did not mean anything. But then Danny brought him more news. Counselor Thon, the older Valorian with the gold markings on his face. He has been asking about you. Danny said one morning. Jake felt his stomach drop. Asking what? Everything. Your service record. Your family background. Your interests and hobbies. He talked to Katie Moore for almost an hour yesterday. Danny looked at him with wide eyes. Jake, they are investigating you. The princess is investigating you. Jake did not know what to say. He sat in silence while Danny continued to talk, but he was not listening anymore. His mind was racing. He remembered the cultural briefings he had read before the Valorians arrived. He had skimmed most of them, but certain parts had stuck in his memory. Valorian courtship rituals were serious matters. When a Valorian showed interest in someone, it was not casual. It carried weight and meaning. There were expectations and obligations. If he responded to the princess's attention, he might be agreeing to something he did not understand. He might be making promises he could not keep. He might be binding himself to her in ways that could affect the rest of his life. The thought terrified him. Jake was not a coward. He had faced danger before. He had survived asteroid storms and engine failures and close calls with hostile ships. But this was different. This was emotional danger. This was the kind of thing that could not be fixed with quick thinking and good reflexes. So Jake made a decision. If the princess was interested in him, he would make sure she lost that interest. He would avoid her. He would stay out of her sight. He would be invisible until the delegation left, and then he would forget any of this had ever happened. It was a simple plan. It should have worked, but Jake did not understand the Valorians as well as he thought he did. And he certainly did not understand Princess Alara. Jake Harris became a ghost on his own ship. It started small. He changed the times he ate his meals. Instead of breakfast at 7, he ate at 5 in the morning when the mess hall was empty. Instead of lunch at noon, he grabbed food from the automated dispensers and ate in his quarters. Dinner was skipped entirely or eaten so late that even the cleaning robots had gone to sleep. He memorized the princess's schedule through careful observation. He learned that she took walks on the observation deck at 10 each morning. He learned that she attended diplomatic meetings from 2 until 5. He learned that she liked to visit the ship's garden at sunset, when the artificial light shifted to warm oranges and reds. So Jake avoided the observation deck in the morning. He stayed deep in the lower decks during the afternoon. He never went near the garden at all. When he had to walk through the main corridors, he planned his routes carefully. He used maintenance tunnels and service passages. He climbed through access hatches and squeezed past equipment storage areas. He knew every hidden path on the horizon, and he used them all. Danny thought he had lost his mind. "This is crazy," Danny said one evening, finding Jake hiding behind a large power unit in the engineering section. "You are acting like a hunted animal." Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. He had just crawled through 3 decks to avoid a corridor where he had seen one of the Valorian attendants. "I am being careful." "You are being insane. She is a princess, not a monster. Why are you so afraid of her?" Jake did not answer. He could not explain the fear that gripped him every time he thought about facing Princess Alara. It was not fear of her exactly. It was fear of what she represented. The unknown. The unexpected. The loss of control over his own life. Days passed, and Jake's avoidance became more extreme. He volunteered for extra shifts in the lower decks, where the delegation never went. He offered to check equipment in remote sections of the ship. He spent hours in the engine room, pretending to inspect systems that did not need inspection. His work began to suffer. He was tired all the time. He made small mistakes in his calculations. Captain Morrison noticed and called him to her office. "Lieutenant Commander Harris," she said, looking at him with sharp eyes. "You look terrible." "I am fine, Captain." "You are not fine. You have lost weight. You have dark circles under your eyes. And according to the duty logs, you have been working double shifts for the past week." She leaned forward. "What is going on?" Jake hesitated. He trusted Captain Morrison. She had been his commanding officer for 2 years. She was fair and kind, and she cared about her crew. But how could he explain his situation? "I am just trying to stay busy," he said finally. "Busy or invisible?" The captain's voice was gentle. "Jake, I have known you since you were a fresh ensign. I can tell when something is wrong, and I can tell that your current behavior has something to do with Princess Alara." Jake looked at the floor. "She has been showing me attention. Attention I do not understand. I read the cultural briefings about Valorian courtship. If I respond to her incorrectly, I could cause a diplomatic incident. So you chose not to respond at all. It seemed like the safest option." Captain Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. "Jake, have you considered that your avoidance might be sending its own message? The Valorians are not like us. They may interpret your behavior in ways you did not intend." The thought made Jake feel sick. "What do you mean?" "Among the Valorians, attention from royalty is an honor. By avoiding Princess Alara, you might be telling her that you find her unworthy of your time. You might be insulting her without meaning to." Jake had not thought of that. He had been so focused on protecting himself that he had not considered how his actions might affect her. "What should I do?" he asked. "I cannot tell you that. But I can tell you that running away from problems rarely makes them better." The captain stood up. "Think about it, Jake, and try to get some sleep. You look like you have not slept in days." Jake left her office feeling worse than before. He wandered through the ship, using his hidden paths out of habit, and found himself near the observation deck. Through a small window in a maintenance hatch, he could see the stars streaming past. He could also see Princess Alara. She stood alone by the large window, her back to him. Her skin, which he had learned could show her emotions, was a deep purple, almost bruise-colored. Even from this distance, he could see that something was wrong. As he watched, Councillor Thon approached her. The old Valorian spoke softly, but Jake could hear fragments of the conversation through the thin walls. "Your Highness, you must not let this trouble you. He avoids me like I am poison." The princess's voice was heavy with sadness. "I have done something to offend him. but I do not know what. Humans are strange creatures. Perhaps he does not understand your intentions. Then why does he not ask? Why does he run? She turned, and Jake saw her face clearly for the first time in days. Her silver eyes were dim, like stars covered by clouds. I felt something when I first saw him. A connection. A resonance. I thought perhaps he felt it too. But now, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Jake pulled back from the window, his heart pounding. He had not meant to hurt her. He had not meant to make her feel rejected or unwanted. He had only been trying to protect himself. But in protecting himself, he had wounded her. The realization weighed on him as he made his way back to his quarters. He passed Danny in the corridor and ignored his friend's worried questions. He locked himself in his room and sat on his bed, staring at the wall. What had he done? He thought about all the times he had seen her skin turn pink when she looked at him. He had thought it was casual interest, maybe curiosity about a strange human face. But the cultural briefings had said that color meant pleasure. It meant warmth. It meant that she liked what she saw, and he had responded by running away. Jake put his head in his hands. He was not a cruel person. He had never wanted to hurt anyone. But his fear had made him thoughtless, and his thoughtlessness had caused pain. He stayed awake most of the night, thinking about what to do. Part of him wanted to keep hiding. It would be easier. The delegation would leave in less than 2 weeks, and then he would never have to face his mistakes. But another part of him, a part that he usually tried to ignore, felt ashamed. He had been a coward. He had let his fear control him. And an innocent person had suffered because of it. As the artificial dawn began to brighten his room, Jake made a decision. He could not keep running. He had to face Princess Alara, even if the conversation was awkward and painful. He owed her an explanation at the very least. He showered and put on a fresh uniform. He ate a small breakfast. He practiced what he would say in his head, trying to find the right words. But when he stepped out of his quarters, ready to find the princess and apologize, he discovered that she had found him first. She was standing at the end of the corridor, alone, her silver eyes fixed on his door. Her skin was still that deep purple color, but there was something else in her expression now. Something that looked like determination. "Lieutenant Commander Harris," she said, and her voice was not gentle anymore. "We need to talk." Jake swallowed hard. The conversation he had been dreading was finally here, and there was no more running from it. The days that followed were different from anything Jake had experienced before. He stopped hiding. He stopped using the maintenance tunnels and the service passages. He walked through the main corridors like a normal crew member, and when he saw Princess Alara, he smiled at her instead of running away. They met every morning in the observation lounge. It became their place, their routine. Jake would arrive with 2 cups of coffee, one for himself and one for her, even though Valorians did not usually drink earth beverages. She had tried it once and found she liked the warmth, if not the taste. "Tell me about your world," Jake said one morning, sitting across from her near the window. Ilara's skin glowed softly as she thought about her home. "Valoria is a world of light. Our sun is younger than yours, brighter and more blue. The forests on my world are made of crystal trees that catch the light and scatter it into rainbows. The oceans glow at night with living things that produce their own light. It sounds beautiful. It is, but it is also dangerous." She turned her silver eyes toward him. "The same light that makes our world beautiful also reveals everything. There are no shadows on Valoria, no places to hide. Every creature can be seen. Every emotion can be read. My people evolved to show our feelings on our skin because hiding them was impossible anyway." Jake thought about this. That must make life very different. On Earth, we spend so much energy hiding from each other. Your people fascinate us, Alara admitted. You can feel one thing and show another. You can smile when you are sad, laugh when you are angry. It is a kind of magic to us, the ability to wear a mask over your true self. I never thought of it as magic. I always thought of it as survival. Perhaps it is both. She sipped her coffee and made a face at the bitter taste. Tell me more about Earth. Tell me about the places that shaped you. So Jake told her about his hometown, a small place called Cedar Falls, surrounded by green hills and quiet rivers. He told her about summer nights catching fireflies in glass jars, about winter mornings when the snow turned the world white and silent. He told her about the smell of his mother's cooking and the sound of his father's voice reading stories before bed. Alara listened with her entire being. Her skin shifted through colors Jake was learning to recognize: soft greens for curiosity, warm yellows for pleasure, gentle blues for sadness when he spoke of things he had lost. You miss it, she observed. You're home, sometimes. Space is amazing, but it can also be lonely. Out here, you are always surrounded by people, but they are crew members, not family. You have friends, but they might get transferred to another ship tomorrow. He shrugged. You learn not to get too attached. Is that why you were afraid of me? Because you have learned that attachment leads to loss? The question hit closer to home than Jake expected. He was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee cup in his hands. Maybe, he admitted. I have been hurt before. People I trusted, people I cared about, they left or they changed or they let me down. After enough times, you start to protect yourself. You build walls. Walls can keep pain out, Alara said softly, but they also keep joy from getting in. I know, but knowing it and changing it are two different things. Alara reached across the table and took his hand. Then we will work on it together, one brick at a time. The crew of the Horizon noticed the change in Jake. Danny was the first to comment, of course. So you finally stopped running, Danny said, grinning across the lunch table. I was wondering when you would come to your senses. I was not running, Jake protested weakly. Please, you were hiding in maintenance tunnels like a scared rabbit. Everyone knew. Danny leaned forward. But seriously, what happened? You and the princess seem, I do not know, friendly now. We talked. We understood each other better. Jake shrugged. She is not what I expected. What did you expect? I do not know. Someone cold and royal, maybe? Someone who would look down on a simple human officer. He smiled slightly. Instead, she is kind and curious and genuinely interested in understanding people different from herself. Sounds like you like her. I do. I'm not sure what that means yet, but I do. Danny raised his eyebrows but said nothing more. He just clapped Jake on the shoulder and went back to eating his lunch. Captain Morrison called Jake to her office a few days later. He expected a lecture about appropriate behavior with diplomatic guests, but instead, she smiled at him. You look better, she said. You actually look like you have been sleeping. I've been, Captain. Thank you for the advice you gave me about running, not solving problems. I am glad you listened. The princess seems happier too. Counselor, Dawn mentioned to me that her mood has improved significantly. The captain leaned back in a chair. Jake, I am not going to pretend I understand what is happening between you and Princess Alara. Cross-species relationships are complicated, and this one involves royalty. But I trust your judgment. Just be careful, and remember that her people are watching. I will, Captain. The following week was the happiest Jake could remember in a long time. He and Alara spent hours together, exploring the ship and talking about everything under the stars. She showed him how to read the subtle colors of Valorian skin, teaching him the difference between the orange of excitement and the red of passion. He taught her human card games and laughed when she accused him of cheating. Your face did not move, she said, staring at him across the card table. You had terrible cards, but your face showed nothing. That is definitely cheating. It is called a poker face, Jake explained. It is the whole point of the game. It is trickery. On Valoria, we would see your true feelings and know you were bluffing. Then I would lose every game on Valoria. Yes, she agreed, but she was smiling. You would. One evening, they sat together in the ship's garden. It was a small space filled with earth plants, a reminder of home for the human crew. Jake had avoided it for weeks because of Alara's visits, but now he loved being there with her. What happens when the delegation leaves? Jake asked. The question had been weighing on him for days, but he had been afraid to ask. Alara's skin shifted to a thoughtful shade of gray-blue. I have been thinking about that too. Will we ever see each other again? I do not know. She turned to face him fully. My duties will take me back to Valoria. Your duties will keep you in space. The distance between our worlds is vast. So this is just what? A nice experience that ends when your ship leaves. Is that what you want it to be? Jake thought carefully before answering. 2 weeks ago, he would have said yes. A clean break, no complications, no obligations. But something had changed in him during their time together. The walls he had built so carefully were starting to crack. No, he said honestly, I do not want this to end. Alara's skin bloomed with warm colors, amber and gold and soft pink. Neither do I among my people. When we find a true connection, we do not let distance destroy it. We write, we visit, we make the bond a priority regardless of how far apart we are. That sounds hard. It is. But worthwhile things often are. She took his hand. I am not asking you to promise me forever, Jake Harris. I am only asking you to try. He squeezed her hand gently. I can do that. I can try. Then that is enough. For now, that is enough. They sat together in the garden. As the artificial sunset painted everything in shades of orange and red, Jake felt something he had almost forgotten was possible. He felt hope. The corridor was empty, except for the two of them. Jake stood frozen outside his quarters, and Princess Alara stood 10 feet away, blocking his path. The ship hummed quietly around them, but the silence between them felt heavy and thick. Your Highness, Jake started, but she raised a hand to stop him. No, I have waited for 18 days. I have watched you run from me like I am a disease. I have asked myself every question I can think of. What did I do wrong? What is so terrible about me that a human cannot even stand to be in the same room? Her voice cracked slightly. I will not leave this ship without answers. Jake's heart was beating so hard he could feel it in his throat. He had prepared a speech, but now all the words had fled from his mind. He could only stare at her, at the deep purple of her skin and the pain in her silver eyes. Please, he said, can we talk somewhere private? Alara studied him for a moment, then nodded. The observation lounge should be empty at this hour. Follow me. She turned and walked away. Jake followed, feeling like a man walking to his own trial. They moved through the corridors in silence, passing crew members who gave them curious looks. A human and a Valorian princess walking together was not a common sight. The observation lounge was a large room with windows that covered the entire outer wall. Stars filled the view, millions of tiny lights against the darkness of space. At this hour, the room was indeed empty. Alara walked to the window and stood with her back to Jake. Speak, she said. Tell me why you have treated me this way. Jake took a deep breath. I was afraid. Alara turned sharply. Afraid? Afraid of what? I have no weapons. I have no power over you. What could I possibly do to frighten a human male? You could change my life. The words came out before Jake could stop them. When I saw you at the welcome ceremony, I felt something. Something I did not expect and could not explain. And then you started looking at me, following me, having your people investigate me. He ran a hand through his hair. I read the cultural briefings about your people. I know that Valorian courtship is serious. It is not casual like it can be for humans. It carries obligations and expectations. Ilara's skin flickered, shifting from purple to a confused mix of colors. You were afraid of obligations? I was afraid of being trapped, of losing control over my own life, of being bound to something I did not understand. Jake forced himself to meet her eyes. I am nobody important, Your Highness. I am just a navigation officer on a diplomatic ship. I did not know what you wanted from me, and I did not know how to respond without causing problems. So you chose to cause problems by running away? I thought if I stayed away from you, the interest would fade. I thought you would forget about me and focus on the diplomatic mission. I did not realize. He paused, remembering what he had heard through the maintenance hatch. I did not realize I was hurting you. Ilara was quiet for a long moment. Her skin slowly settled into a calmer shade, something between lavender and gray. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Among my people, to pursue someone is an honor. It means you have seen something valuable in them, something worth knowing better. To be pursued is an equal honor. It means you are worthy of attention and interest. She moved closer to him. When I saw you at the welcome ceremony, I felt a resonance, a connection that I have never felt with anyone before. My people call it Velshara, the recognition of a kindred spirit. I felt it too, Jake admitted. I just did not know what to do with it. So you did the most human thing possible. You buried your feelings and ran away. There was no anger in her voice now, only a kind of sad understanding. Your people are strange, Jake Harris. You feel so deeply, but you hide it behind walls of stone. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. It is how we protect ourselves. Where I come from, showing your feelings makes you weak. People take advantage. They use your emotions against you. That sounds like a terrible way to live. It is what we know. Ilara reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was warm and smooth, and Jake felt a tingling sensation where they connected. My people cannot hide our emotions. Our skin shows everything we feel. Because of this, we have built a society where emotional honesty is the highest virtue. To feel is to share. To share is to connect. To connect is to grow stronger. And when connections break, Jake asked, what happens then? We grieve openly, together. Her grip on his hand tightened slightly. It is painful, but it is honest. We do not pretend that broken connections do not hurt. We acknowledge the pain and move through it. Jake thought about his own past, the failed relationships he had buried and tried to forget, the walls he had built around his heart after each disappointment, the way he had learned to keep everyone at a distance to avoid being hurt again. I have not been fair to you, he said finally. I was so worried about protecting myself that I did not think about how my actions would affect you. I am sorry. Ilara's skin shifted to a warmer color, something close to amber. I accept your apology, but I have a question. Ask it. The resonance I felt, the Velshara, do you still feel it? Or has your fear killed it entirely? Jake looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since the welcome ceremony. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. There was a kindness in her eyes, a warmth that her luminescent skin could not hide. She had every reason to be angry with him, to dismiss him as a foolish human not worth her time. But instead, she was standing here, holding his hand, asking if there was still a chance. I still feel it, he said. I do not understand it, and it still scares me. But it has not gone away. Then perhaps we can start again. Ilara smiled, and her skin glowed bright with colors Jake was beginning to associate with happiness. not as princes and officer, not with expectations or obligations, just as two beings who want to know each other better. Is that allowed? I mean, for someone of your position? I am a princess, Jake Harris. I can do whatever I choose. Her smile widened. And I choose to give you another chance. The question is, will you take it? Jake thought about all the reasons to say no. The differences between their species. The complications of her royal status. The fact that the delegation would leave in less than 2 weeks. None of it seemed important compared to the feeling in his chest when she looked at him. I will take it, he said. But you have to be patient with me. I am not good at this. I have noticed. She released his hand and gestured toward the window. Walk with me. Tell me about yourself. Not the information in your service record. The real things. Your hopes. Your fears. The experiences that made you who you are. They walked together along the window, the stars stretching endlessly before them. Jake talked more than he had talked to anyone in years. He told her about growing up on Earth, in a small town where everyone knew everyone else. He told her about his father, who had been a spaceship engineer, and his mother, who had taught him to read the stars. He told her about his first heartbreak, his decision to join the fleet, and all the small adventures and disappointments that had shaped his life. Alara listened without interrupting. Her skin shifted through countless colors as he spoke, each one reflecting her emotional response to his words. When he finished, she reached out and touched his cheek. Thank you, she said, for trusting me with these pieces of yourself. Will you share your own pieces in return? Of course. She turned to face the stars. But that is a conversation for another time. For now, I am simply glad that you stopped running. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the universe drift past the window. Jake felt something he had not felt in a long time. It was not quite hope and not quite peace. It was something in between, something fragile and new. It was the beginning of understanding. The day of departure came too quickly. Jake stood in his quarters, staring at himself in the mirror. He had polished his uniform until every button shone. He had combed his hair 3 times. He had done everything he could to look presentable, but nothing could fix the hollow feeling in his chest. In a few hours, the Valorian delegation would board their transport ship and leave. Princess Alara would return to her world, to her duties, to a life that did not include him. Their time together would become a memory, a story to tell on lonely nights among the stars. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Danny entered, looking uncomfortable in his dress uniform. Hey, the ceremony starts in an hour. Everyone is gathering in the main docking bay. I know. I will be there. Danny hesitated. Jake, are you okay? You look, I do not know, sad. I am sad, Jake admitted. I finally stopped running from something good, and now it is leaving anyway. Then do not let it leave without a proper goodbye. Danny walked over and straightened Jake's collar. The time you had together was real. It mattered. That does not disappear just because she gets on a ship. Since when did you become wise? I have always been wise. You just never listened. Danny grinned. Now come on. You do not want to be late. The main docking bay was crowded with crew members and dignitaries. Captain Morrison stood at the front, ready to deliver her farewell speech. The Valorian delegation was assembled in their formal robes, glittering like living jewels under the harsh lights. Jake found a spot near the back of the human crowd. He could see Alara standing at the center of her people, wearing the same purple and silver robes she had worn on the day she arrived. The crystal crown on her head caught the light and scattered tiny rainbows across her face. She was beautiful. She had always been beautiful, but now Jake understood that her beauty went deeper than her glowing skin or silver eyes. It was in the way she listened when he spoke. It was in the kindness she showed to every crew member she met. It was in the courage it took to confront him that night in the corridor, demanding answers instead of accepting his rejection. Captain Morrison began her speech. She talked about the historic nature of this visit, about the bonds formed between humans and Valorians, about the bright future of cooperation between their peoples. It was a good speech, full of hope and diplomatic warmth. Then it was Counselor Than's turn. The old Valorian spoke of gratitude and friendship, of lessons learned and experiences shared. His words were formal but sincere. Finally, Princess Alara stepped forward. "When I came to this ship," she said, her musical voice carrying through the bay, "I expected to study a new species. I expected to learn about human technology, human customs, human ways of thinking. What I did not expect was to find something far more valuable." She paused, and her eyes found Jake in the crowd. "I found proof that understanding can grow between the most different of beings, if both are brave enough to stop running and start talking." Jake felt heat rise to his face. Several crew members turned to look at him. Danny elbowed him in the ribs. Alara continued, "Humans are a young species. You have not been among the stars as long as we have. But in your hearts, there is a strength that older races have forgotten. You feel fear, but you face it. You build walls, but you also tear them down. You protect yourselves, but when it matters, you also take risks." She smiled, and Jake felt his heart squeeze. "I will carry the lessons I learned here for the rest of my life. And I hope that the connections made on this ship will continue to grow, even across the vastness of space." The crowd applauded. The Valorian delegation began making their final farewells, moving through the room to shake hands and exchange embraces with the humans they had come to know. Jake waited. He watched as Comostas. Alara spoke with Captain Morrison, with Danny, with Katie Moore, and all the others who had made the delegation feel welcome. She was gracious and warm with each of them, taking time to offer personal thanks. Finally, she came to him. They stood facing each other while the chaos of departure swirled around them. Ilara's skin was a complex mix of colors, too many for Jake to read clearly. "I was afraid this moment would be harder," she said quietly. "But seeing you here, looking at me instead of running away, I feel only gratitude." "I spent so much time avoiding you," Jake replied. "I wasted almost half of your visit hiding in maintenance tunnels. I will never get that time back." "No, but you got the time that remained. That is what matters." She reached into the folds of her robe and pulled out a small object. It was a crystal, about the size of Jake's thumb, pulsing with soft inner light. "This is a communication stone," she explained. "It is keyed to its partner, which I will carry with me. When you want to speak with me, hold this crystal and think of me. No matter how far apart we are, I will hear you." Jake took the crystal. It was warm against his palm, like holding a small piece of captured sunlight. "You are giving me a way to find you again? I am giving you a choice. If you want to let this end here, you can put the stone away and forget about it. But if you want to try, if you want to see where this connection leads, then all you have to do is reach out." Jake closed his fingers around the crystal. "I spent weeks running from you because I was afraid of being trapped. I was afraid of losing control, of being bound to something I did not choose. And now? Now I understand that the only thing I was really afraid of was myself." He stepped closer to her, close enough to see the tiny flecks of gold in her silver eyes. "I am not good at this, Alara. I am not good at being open or vulnerable or trusting. But I want to try. For the first time in a long time, I want to try." Her skin bloomed with colors he had never seen before. Brilliant golds and warm pinks and soft whites that seemed to pulse with joy. Without warning, she stepped forward and embraced him. The crew around them gasped. Valorian royalty did not embrace common people. It was not done. But Alara did not seem to care about customs or expectations. She held Jake tightly, and he felt the warmth of her skin through his uniform. "Thank you," she whispered. "For stopping. For listening. For giving me a chance. Thank you for not giving up on me." They stood together for a long moment, ignoring the stares and whispers around them. Then, slowly, Alara pulled back. "I must go," she said. "My people are waiting. I know. Use the stone, Jake Harris. Reach out to me. I will." She touched his face one last time, her fingers warm against his cheek. Then she turned and walked toward the Valorian transport, her robes flowing behind her like a river of light. Jake watched her board the ship. He watched the airlock seal behind her. He watched through the docking bay window as the sleek Valorian vessel detached and drifted away, growing smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. The crystal in his hand pulsed gently, somewhere across the growing distance. He knew another crystal pulsed in response. Danny appeared at his side. "You okay?" Jake did not answer right away. He was thinking about wars and fear, and all the time he had wasted protecting himself from things that turned out to be worth the risk. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think I am. What happens now?" Jake looked down at the crystal in his palm, feeling its warmth, feeling its promise. "Now I figure out how to be brave enough to deserve her." He walked away from the window, but he did not put the crystal in his pocket. He held it in his hand, feeling it pulse against his skin like a second heartbeat. Some connections were worth the vulnerability. Some people were worth the risk, and Jake Harris was finally done running